Before we dive into this incredible story, drop a comment below and tell us where you're watching from. We love hearing from you. Now, let's begin. The California sun was merciless that August morning, beating down on the cracked sidewalks of Oakwood neighborhood. Sergeant Adam Keller wiped the sweat from his forehead as he pushed through his 5th mile, his running shoes pounding against the pavement in a steady rhythm that usually helped quiet his mind. But today, nothing could silence the thoughts. 3 weeks home from his final deployment, 3 weeks of staring at ceiling fans in his childhood bedroom, 3 weeks of his mother tiptoeing around him like he was made of glass. Adam rounded the corner past the old Henderson Street apartments, a cluster of abandoned buildings that the city had promised to demolish for years. The windows were boarded up, graffiti covering every surface, trash scattered across the overgrown lot. That's when he heard it. A sound so faint he almost missed it. A whimper, weak, desperate. Adam stopped, his military instincts immediately alert. He turned toward the sound, scanning the area. Nothing moved, just the rustle of plastic bags in the hot breeze. There it was again. He moved toward the back of the building, past overflowing dumpsters and piles of debris. And then he saw her, a little girl, no more than 6 years old, lying against a pile of garbage bags. Her clothes were torn and filthy, her dark hair matted against her pale face. She wasn't moving. Adam's heart slammed against his chest. He dropped to his knees beside her, fingers immediately checking for a pulse. It was there, faint but steady. "Hey, sweetheart, can you hear me?" His voice was gentle despite the panic rising in his throat. He pulled out his phone with shaking hands and dialed 911. 911? What's your emergency? I found a child. She's unconscious. I need an ambulance immediately. Adam rattled off the location, his training kicking in as he assessed her condition. Dehydrated, malnourished, but breathing. The operator's voice was calm, professional. "Help is on the way. Stay with her. Don't move her unless she's in immediate danger." Adam set the phone down, keeping the line open. He gently brushed the hair from the girl's face. "You're going to be okay. Help is coming." As if responding to his voice, the girl's eyelids fluttered. Her lips moved, trying to form words. Adam leaned closer. "What is it, sweetheart? I'm right here." Her eyes opened slightly, brown eyes filled with fear and exhaustion that no child should ever know. She grabbed weakly at his shirt, pulling him closer. And then she whispered 4 words that would change everything. "My baby brother is still inside." Before Adam could ask where, before he could say anything, her hand fell away and her eyes closed again. In the distance, sirens wailed, growing louder. But all Adam could hear was that small, desperate voice echoing in his mind. "My baby brother is still inside." 3 days earlier, Adam had arrived at his mother's house with nothing but a duffel bag and a headache that wouldn't quit. Margaret Keller opened the door before he could knock, her face lighting up in a way that made Adam's chest tighten with guilt. How long had it been since he'd seen her smile like that? "Adam, oh my boy, come in, come in." She pulled him into a hug that smelled like lavender soap and freshly baked bread, the scent of home he'd almost forgotten. The house looked exactly the same floral curtains his father had complained about 20 years ago, same family photos lining the hallway, frozen moments of a life that felt like it belonged to someone else. Same creaking floorboard in the kitchen that announced your arrival before you could. "I made your favorite, pot roast with those carrots you always picked out as a kid," Margaret said, already moving toward the kitchen with the energy of someone who'd been waiting for this moment for months. Adam managed a small smile. "I eat carrots now, Mom." "Well, miracles do happen." She winked, but her eyes were searching his face, looking for answers he wasn't ready to give. Dinner was quiet. Margaret filled the silence with neighborhood news. Mrs. Chen's hip surgery, the Johnsons' new grandbaby, the church bake sale coming up next month. Adam nodded at appropriate moments, pushing food around his plate. "How are you sleeping?" Margaret finally asked, her voice gentle. "Fine." The lie came easily. Margaret's hand reached across the table, covering his. Her skin was paper-thin now, spotted with age. When had his mother gotten so old? "Adam, you know you can talk to me." "There's nothing to talk about, Mom. I'm just adjusting." Margaret nodded, but the worry in her eyes remained. She changed the subject. "I've been volunteering more at the church. So many families around here are struggling. Single mothers working 2 jobs, kids left alone too much. She gestured toward the window where children's voices drifted from the street. "See those two boys? Danny and Luis. Their mama works nights at the hospital. They're good kids, but they need watching." Adam glanced outside. Two boys, maybe 10 and 12, were kicking a soccer ball in the fading light. No adult in sight. "Things have changed since you grew up here," Margaret continued. "People are barely holding on. The Hendersons moved out last year. Couldn't afford the rent increase. Those apartments near Oak Street, been empty for 2 years. The city doesn't care. It's like they've just forgotten about this neighborhood." Adam heard the sadness in her voice. His mother had lived here for 40 years, raised 2 sons in this house, buried her husband in the cemetery 3 blocks away. This wasn't just a neighborhood to her. It was her whole world. "You're doing good work, Mom," Adam said quietly. Margaret squeezed his hand. "I'm trying, but sometimes I wonder if it's enough. There's so much need, so many children falling through the cracks." That night, Adam lay awake in his childhood bedroom, staring at glow-in-the-dark stars he'd stuck to the ceiling when he was 8. His mother's words echoed in his mind. Children falling through the cracks. He'd seen children fall through worse cracks overseas. Children caught in crossfire. Children orphaned by violence. Children with eyes that had seen too much. He'd come home to escape those memories, but maybe there was no escaping them. The next morning, Adam laced up his running shoes before dawn. Margaret was already awake, humming in the kitchen. "Be careful out there," she called as he headed for the door. "Always am." He had no idea how wrong he was. The ambulance doors slammed shut, and Adam watched as they drove away with the little girl. Sirens fading into the morning heat. A police officer had taken his statement, scribbling notes while asking the same questions 3 different ways. Now Adam sat on the hood of his car outside Mercy General Hospital, waiting. He'd followed the ambulance here, unable to just walk away. That whispered plea, "My baby brother is still inside," had burrowed into his mind like a splinter. Inside meant somewhere. Inside a building, inside a house, inside a place where a baby was alone. Maybe hurt, maybe worse. 2 hours passed before a tired-looking woman in a gray pantsuit emerged from the emergency entrance, scanning the parking lot. She spotted Adam and walked over, her sensible shoes clicking against the asphalt. "Sergeant Keller, I'm Rebecca Mills, Child Protective Services." She extended her hand. Her grip was firm, but her eyes were exhausted, the kind of tired that sleep couldn't fix. "How is she?" Adam stood up. "Stable, dehydrated, malnourished, but she'll recover physically." Rebecca pulled out a folder bulging with papers. "Her name is Lily Thompson. She's 6 years old." "What about her brother? Did she say anything about—" "We're looking into it." Rebecca's tone was professional, practiced. "Lily's mother is Crystal Thompson, currently in county jail on a possession charge. She's been there for 8 days." 8 days? Adam's jaw tightened. That little girl was out there for 8 days? We don't know exactly how long. The mother mentioned having children during her arrest, but the information was unclear. "We're trying to piece together addresses, contacts, anyone who might have been caring for them. She said her baby brother is still inside somewhere. You need to find him now." Rebecca's expression softened with something that looked like pity, or maybe just resignation. "Sergeant Keller, I understand your concern, but we have protocols. We need to verify information, get legal clearances, coordinate with police." "Protocols?" Adam's voice rose. "A baby could be dying right now." "I know." Rebecca's composure cracked slightly. "I know. But I have 43 active cases on my desk, 43 children in crisis situations. I have 2 other workers out sick, and the county just cut our budget by 15%. We're doing everything we can." She pulled out a document showing him Crystal Thompson's file. "The mother has a history of housing instability. We have 3 different addresses on file, none confirmed current. She mentioned 2 children during intake, but there's no birth certificate for a second child in the system. No hospital records, no pediatric visits. So he doesn't exist officially? Or she was confused or trying to manipulate the system for sympathy, or—" Rebecca stopped herself. "Look, I'm not saying the baby isn't real. I'm saying we need time to investigate properly." "How much time?" Rebecca hesitated. "Could be days, could be weeks." Adam felt something cold settle in his stomach. "He doesn't have weeks." "I'm doing everything I can," Rebecca said. And Adam believed her. But belief didn't change reality. She handed him a card. "If you think of anything else, any detail Lily mentioned, call me. And Sergeant Keller, thank you for finding her. If you hadn't—" She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. After Rebecca left, Adam sat in his car, gripping the steering wheel. The air conditioning blasted cold air, but he couldn't stop sweating. He thought about the missions overseas, the hurry-up-and-wait bureaucracy, the red tape that could cost lives, the frustration of knowing something needed to be done now while officials argued over procedures. He'd left all that behind, or so he thought. Adam started the car and drove home. Margaret was watering her tomato plants in the backyard when he arrived. "How's the little girl?" she asked immediately, reading his face. Adam told her everything. About Lily, about the missing baby, about the overworked system that might take too long. Margaret set down the watering can, her hand trembling slightly. She was quiet for a long moment, staring at her garden. Then she looked at Adam with an expression he'd never seen before. Determination mixed with something fierce and protective. "That baby doesn't have time for the system, Adam." "Mom, no, listen to me." She stepped closer. "I spent 30 years as a nurse's aide, following rules, filling out forms, watching people suffer while paperwork got processed. I'm done with that." "What are you saying?" Margaret's voice was steady. "I'm saying we find that baby ourselves." Adam stared at his mother. "Mom, you can't be serious." "I've never been more serious in my life." Margaret crossed her arms. "A child is in danger. We have information the authorities don't have time to follow up on. We know this neighborhood. We know people. We could get in trouble. Legal trouble. I'm 67 years old, Adam. What are they going to do? Arrest a grandmother for caring too much?" Her eyes flashed. "Besides, we're just asking questions. That's not illegal." Adam ran his hand through his hair. Everything logical in his brain said this was a bad idea, but logic had stopped making sense the moment he'd heard Lily's whisper. "Even if we wanted to help, where would we start? We don't know anything about where this baby might be." Margaret was already pulling out her phone. "But I know people who might." For the next hour, Margaret worked the phone like a detective. She called Doris from church, then Elena, who ran the food pantry, then Pastor Jim, who counseled families in crisis. Each conversation led to another name, another number, another piece of the puzzle. Adam listened, amazed. His mother knew everyone, not just their names, but their stories, their struggles, their secrets. She'd spent decades quietly caring for this community, building connections he'd never noticed. Finally, Margaret hung up and looked at Adam with bright eyes. Doris saw Crystal Thompson at the Oak Street shelter about 4 months ago. She was pregnant then. That's something. Did she say anything else? Doris remembers because Crystal was so scared. She kept saying she couldn't let them take another baby. Apparently, this wasn't her first time dealing with child services. Adam felt his chest tighten. This wasn't just neglect. This was a mother so terrified of losing her children that she'd hidden them. Hidden them so well, one ended up alone in garbage and the other, where? The shelter might have records, Margaret said. An address, emergency contacts, something. They won't just give us that information. Margaret smiled. They might not give it to you, but Sandra runs that shelter, and I helped her mama through hospice 3 years ago. She owes me. They drove to the Oak Street shelter in Margaret's old Honda, the air conditioning barely working in the afternoon heat. The building was a converted warehouse, its brick walls painted a cheerful yellow that couldn't quite hide the desperation inside. Sandra met them in the small office that smelled of coffee and bleach. She was a heavy-set woman in her 50s with kind eyes and permanent worry lines. Margaret Keller. As I live and breathe. Sandra hugged Margaret tight. What brings you here? Margaret explained about Lily, about the baby, about the urgent need to find him. Sandra's face grew somber. Crystal Thompson, yes, I remember her. Sandra pulled out a worn ledger. She stayed here for 6 weeks starting in February. Left in late March. Why did she leave? Sandra hesitated. We have rules. No substances on premises. She broke that rule. We had to ask her to leave. Do you know where she went? She mentioned staying with a friend. Someone named Jasmine, I think. They'd been roommates here. Sandra flipped through pages. Jasmine Rodriguez. Last I heard, she was in the Elmwood area. Margaret squeezed Sandra's hand. Thank you. This might save a life. I hope so. Sandra's voice was heavy. I've seen too many children slip through our fingers. The system is broken, Margaret. Good people like you and me, we can't fix it alone. Maybe not, Margaret said. But we can try. Outside, Adam looked at his mother with new respect. You're good at this. I've lived here a long time, son. You learn how to navigate when you care enough to pay attention. She climbed into the car. Now let's find Jasmine Rodriguez. They drove through the neighborhood slowly, Margaret pointing out landmarks and changes. That used to be a grocery store, closed 5 years ago. Now people have to take 2 buses to buy fresh food. She gestured to a boarded-up clinic. Free health center. Lost its funding. Adam saw his childhood neighborhood with new eyes. Not the place of memories, but a community slowly being forgotten, slowly dying. They found Jasmine at Elmwood Park watching her 2 small children play on the swings. She was young, maybe 25, with tired eyes that looked older. Margaret approached gently. Jasmine Rodriguez? My name is Margaret Keller. I'm sorry to bother you, but I need to ask about Crystal Thompson. It's urgent. Jasmine's face went pale. Is she okay? Are the kids? Lily is safe. We found her this morning, but we're looking for her baby brother. Do you know where he might be? Jasmine looked around nervously, then back at her own children. Finally, she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. Crystal was so scared they'd take Noah away. She kept him hidden, somewhere only she knew. She said if they couldn't find him, they couldn't take him. Tears filled Jasmine's eyes. I told her it was crazy, but she wouldn't listen. Where, Jasmine? Where did she hide him? An abandoned house, near Elm Avenue. 1847, I think. She said there was a basement that she'd set up a safe place for him there. Adam felt ice in his veins. A baby. In a basement. Alone for over a week. Thank you, Margaret said urgently. They rushed back to the car. Adam's hand shook as he started the engine. 1847 Elm Avenue, Margaret repeated. We need to go there now. We should call Rebecca. And wait how long? Hours? Days? Margaret's voice was firm. That baby has been alone for over a week, Adam. We don't have time. Adam looked at his mother, this woman who'd spent her life following rules, who'd never even gotten a speeding ticket, and he saw himself reflected in her determination. Okay, he said. Let's go find him. The drive to Elm Avenue took 12 minutes that felt like hours. Adam's knuckles were white on the steering wheel, Margaret silent beside him, both lost in the same terrible thoughts. What if they were too late? 1847. Elm Avenue stood like a skeleton, a 2-story house with broken windows and a sagging porch. The front door hung at an angle, graffiti screaming across faded siding. The yard was a jungle of weeds and trash. Adam parked across the street. Stay in the car, Mom. Absolutely not. This place could be dangerous, structural damage, squatters. That baby needs help now. I'm coming with you. Margaret's tone left no room for argument. They approached carefully. Adam went first, testing each porch step before putting weight on it. The front door wasn't locked. It couldn't be, hanging half off its hinges. Inside, the smell hit them first. Mold, decay, and something else Adam couldn't identify. Sunlight streamed through broken windows, illuminating dust particles dancing in the stale air. Hello, Adam called out. His voice echoed in the empty space. No response. They moved through the first floor. Empty rooms, stripped walls, debris everywhere. Signs that people had been here. Empty bottles, old blankets, spray paint cans. But no baby. The basement, Margaret said, pointing to a door. Adam pulled out his phone and turned on the flashlight. The stairs descended into darkness, each step groaning under their weight. Margaret gripped the railing, following close behind. The basement was worse. The concrete floor was damp, the ceiling low. Broken furniture was piled against walls, cardboard boxes disintegrating in the moisture. And there, in the far corner, Adam's flashlight found a makeshift crib, blankets arranged in a box, surrounded by empty baby bottles and a diaper bag. But it was empty. No, Margaret whispered. No, no, no. Adam moved closer, examining the area. The blankets were rumpled but damp. The bottles had water residue but no formula. He picked up a pacifier, recently used, still slightly wet. Someone was here. Recently. His military training kicked in, analyzing the scene. Within the last day or two. But where's the baby? Margaret's voice cracked. Adam swept the flashlight around the basement, searching every shadow, every corner. His beam caught something behind a stack of boxes, a flash of color. He moved quickly, pushing boxes aside, and there, wedged in a small space between the boxes and the wall, wrapped in a thin blanket, was baby Noah. "Mom, here!" Margaret rushed over as Adam carefully lifted the tiny bundle. Noah was so small, so still. His skin was pale, his lips dry and cracked. But then, a tiny whimper. His eyes fluttered open for just a moment before closing again. "He's alive," Adam breathed. "He's alive, but barely." Margaret's hands were shaking as she touched Noah's forehead. "He's burning up. We need to get him to a hospital now." Adam was already moving, cradling Noah against his chest as they hurried up the stairs. The baby was too light, too quiet. How long had he been alone? How long since anyone had fed him, changed him, held him? In the sunlight, Noah looked even worse. Sunken cheeks, dry skin, barely responsive. Adam laid him gently in the back seat while Margaret climbed in beside him, keeping Noah stable. Adam dialed 911 as he started the car. "This is Adam Keller. I'm at 1847 Elm Avenue. I have an infant, approximately 4 months old, severe dehydration and malnutrition. We're en route to Mercy General, but he needs immediate emergency response." The operator's voice was urgent. "Sir, we're dispatching an ambulance to meet you. No time. We're 3 minutes from the hospital. Have emergency room ready." Adam drove faster than he ever had, running 2 red lights, his hazard lights flashing. In the rearview mirror, he saw Margaret cradling Noah, whispering prayers, her tears falling on the baby's face. "Hold on, sweet boy," she murmured. "Just hold on. You're not alone anymore. You're not alone." Mercy General's emergency entrance was already prepared when they screeched into the parking lot. A team rushed out with a gurney, taking Noah from Margaret's arms. 4-month-old male, found abandoned, severe dehydration, possible hypothermia, unresponsive. The lead doctor rattled off as they rushed inside. Adam and Margaret tried to follow, but a nurse stopped them at the door. "Let them work. You can't help him in there." They stood in the harsh fluorescent light of the emergency room, both breathing hard, both covered in dust and sweat. Margaret collapsed into a chair, her whole body shaking. Adam sat beside her, putting his arm around her shoulders. "We found him, Mom. We found him in time. But is it enough?" Margaret whispered. "Is he going to be okay?" Adam had no answer. All they could do was wait. 15 minutes later, the same doctor emerged, pulling off his gloves. His face was serious but not devastated, a distinction Adam had learned to read during his military service. "He's stable, critical, but stable. You got him here just in time. Another day." He didn't finish. "Who are you to this child?" "We're the ones who found him," Margaret said quietly. "Is he going to live?" The doctor's expression softened. "Because of you two?" "Yes, I believe he is." Margaret buried her face in her hands and wept. Within the hour, the hospital was swarming with people. Rebecca Mills arrived first, her professional mask cracking when she saw Noah through the observation window. So tiny in that hospital bed, IV lines running from his small arms. "You found him," she said to Adam and Margaret, her voice thick with emotion. "You actually found him." "We had to," Margaret replied simply. 2 police officers arrived next, including Detective Marcus Chen, a stern-faced man in his 40s, who immediately separated Adam and Margaret for questioning. Adam sat in a small consultation room, repeating the story for the 3rd time. How they'd gotten Jasmine's information, how they'd gone to Elm Avenue, how they'd found Noah. Detective Chen leaned back in his chair, studying Adam. "You understand you entered private property without authorization. That property is abandoned, and a child was dying. The law doesn't care about your intentions, Sergeant. It cares about actions." Chen's voice wasn't unkind, just factual. "You're lucky we're not charging you with trespassing. Charge me if you want. That baby is alive." Chen was quiet for a moment. "I have kids, 3 of them. If it were my kid." He sighed. "Look, I get it, but you put yourself and your mother in danger. That house could have collapsed. There could have been someone dangerous there. You should have called us. Would you have gotten there in time?" The detective didn't answer. In another room, Margaret faced similar questions, but she sat straight-backed, her hands folded calmly in her lap. no trace of regret in her voice. "I'd do it again," she told the officer. "Every single time." By evening, both Adam and Margaret were released with stern warnings but no charges. Rebecca met them in the hallway, looking exhausted. "Noah is responding to treatment. The doctors are cautiously optimistic." She paused. "Lily has been asking about her brother. She's been placed in emergency foster care, but what?" Margaret asked. "Finding a home that can take both children together, especially on short notice, it's nearly impossible. We have so few resources and siblings often get separated." Margaret felt her heart break. "They've lost everything. They can't lose each other too." "I know." Rebecca's voice was barely a whisper. "I know, but I don't make the rules, Mrs. Keller. I just try to work within them." "Well, maybe the rules need to change," Margaret said firmly. Rebecca gave a sad smile. "Maybe they do. But until then, this is the reality." Outside in the parking lot, the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Adam and Margaret walked slowly to the car, both emotionally drained. "You think we made a difference?" Adam asked quietly. Margaret looked back at the hospital, where somewhere inside a tiny baby was fighting to live. Fighting because they'd given him a chance. "Yes," she said, "we made a difference to him. And sometimes that's all we can do." But as they drove home through the darkening streets, Margaret's mind was already working. There had to be a way to keep Lily and Noah together. There had to be someone who could help. And she was going to find them. The next morning, Margaret woke before dawn with a plan forming in her mind. She made coffee and sat at the kitchen table with her address book, a worn leather thing filled with names, numbers, and notes spanning decades. Adam found her there 2 hours later, the table covered with papers and her phone glowing from constant use. "Mom, what are you doing?" "Making calls." Margaret didn't look up. "Pastor Jim is putting out word at church. Doris is contacting the women's auxiliary. Elena is checking with families she knows through the food pantry." "Calls for what?" "A family who can take both Lily and Noah together." Margaret finally looked at him, her eyes bright with determination. "Rebecca said it's nearly impossible. I'm proving her wrong." Adam sat down, amazed. "Mom, you can't just watch me." By noon, word had spread through the neighborhood like wildfire. Margaret's phone rang constantly. Some calls were just curious neighbors wanting details, but others were genuine offers to help. Donations of baby supplies, offers to babysit, connections to family lawyers. Then, at 2 o'clock, Margaret got the call that changed everything. "Mrs. Keller, this is Laura Hartman. You don't know me, but Pastor Jim gave me your number." Margaret grabbed a pen. "Yes, Mrs. Hartman, how can I help you?" "I think maybe I can help you. My husband James and we have a house on Maple Street, 4 bedrooms. Our 3 kids are teenagers now, almost grown. We've been talking about fostering for years, but never took the step." Laura's voice was warm but nervous. "When I heard about those 2 children needing a home together, well, James and I prayed about it. We'd like to meet them." Margaret's hand trembled. "You'd take both of them?" "If they need us, yes. We're not rich, but we have space and love. Isn't that what matters most?" Tears streamed down Margaret's face. "Yes, that's exactly what matters most." Within hours, Rebecca had been contacted. Within days, paperwork was started. The Hartmans were approved as emergency foster parents. Their home was suitable, their background checks clear, their hearts open. A week later, Margaret stood in the hospital hallway as Lily met her potential foster family. The little girl clutched a stuffed rabbit the nurses had given her, her eyes wary. Laura Hartman knelt down to Lily's level. "Hi, sweetheart. My name is Laura. That's my husband James, and those are our kids, Michael, Sarah, and Emma." Lily didn't speak, just stared. "We heard you've been very brave," Laura continued gently. "And we heard you have a baby brother named Noah. We'd love for both of you to come stay with us. Would that be okay?" Lily's small voice finally emerged. "Both of us. Together?" "Together," Laura promised. "Always together." For the first time since Adam had found her, Lily smiled. Margaret watched from a distance, her heart so full it ached. Adam stood beside her, his arm around her shoulders. "You did this, Mom." "No," Margaret said softly. "We all did this. That's what community means." 2 days later, Noah was discharged from the hospital. Still fragile, but gaining strength. The Hartmans took both children home to Maple Street, to a yellow house with a big yard and bedrooms painted in cheerful colors. Margaret visited that first evening, bringing a casserole and homemade cookies. She found Lily sitting in the living room, Noah in her lap, both children clean and fed and safe. "Miss Margaret!" Lily's face lit up when she saw her. Margaret sat beside them, gently touching Noah's soft head. "How are you doing, sweet girl? We have our own room, with 2 beds and toys, and Laura made pancakes." Lily's words tumbled out in a rush. Then she grew quiet. "Is this real? Can we really stay?" Margaret cupped Lily's face. "Yes, honey, this is real. And you're going to be just fine. Because you found us? Because a lot of people love you. And that's never going to change." 3 weeks passed. Noah grew stronger each day, his cheeks filling out, his eyes growing brighter. Lily started to talk more, to laugh, to act like the 6-year-old child she should have been all along. But Margaret grew quieter. Adam noticed it first, his mother moving slower in the mornings, rubbing her temples more often, her hands shaking slightly when she thought no one was watching. "Mom, you okay?" "Just tired, honey. It's been a busy few weeks." But it was more than tired. The adrenaline that had carried Margaret through the rescue and its aftermath was wearing off, leaving exhaustion in its wake. She'd thrown herself into organizing what she now called the Oak Street Network, a group of retired women and community volunteers dedicated to helping families in crisis. They met at the church twice a week, coordinating meal deliveries, childcare assistance, donation drives. Margaret was at the center of it all, answering calls at midnight, driving across town to deliver emergency supplies, spending hours on the phone connecting people with resources. Doris pulled Adam aside after one meeting. "Your mother is running herself into the ground. Someone needs to make her slow down." Adam tried. "Mom, you need to rest." "I will, after we finish the fundraiser for the Martinez family. Their electricity got shut off and—" "Mom, stop." Margaret looked up from the papers spread across the kitchen table, surprised by the firmness in his voice. "You're exhausted. You're not eating properly. When's the last time you slept more than 5 hours? Adam, there are people who need, and you can't help anyone if you collapse." Adam sat down beside her. "Please take a break, just one day." Margaret started to protest, then saw the worry in her son's eyes. "Maybe you're right. Maybe just one day." But that night Margaret couldn't sleep. She lay in bed thinking about Crystal Thompson still in jail, asking about her children in every phone call, about the Hartmans, struggling to afford the extra expenses of 2 more children despite their generous hearts, about all the other families in the neighborhood teetering on the edge of crisis. One day off felt like abandoning them all. At 3 in the morning, she got up to get water. The room spun. She gripped the wall, waiting for the dizziness to pass. It didn't. Margaret's knees buckled. She reached for the door frame but missed. The last thing she heard before darkness took her was the crash of her body hitting the floor and Adam's bedroom door flying open. "Mom!" She woke in Mercy General, the same hospital where they'd brought Noah. The irony wasn't lost on her. Dr. Patel stood at her bedside, his face stern. "Mrs. Keller, your blood pressure is dangerously high. You're severely dehydrated. Your blood sugar is erratic. When's the last time you took your medications?" Margaret couldn't remember. "You have diabetes and hypertension," Dr. Patel continued. "These are manageable conditions, but not if you ignore them. Your body is shutting down from stress and neglect." Adam sat in the corner, his head in his hands. "I'm fine," Margaret insisted weakly. "I just need—" "You need to stop," Dr. Patel interrupted. "You cannot save everyone if you kill yourself trying." The words hit harder than Margaret expected. She looked at Adam, her son who'd survived a war overseas only to watch his mother wage her own war at home. "I'm sorry," she whispered. Adam moved to her bedside, taking her hand. "No more apologies, we're going to figure this out together. But Mom, you have to let other people help you the way you help them." Margaret nodded, tears sliding down her cheeks. She'd spent so long taking care of everyone else, she'd forgotten how to let anyone take care of her. "Okay," she said softly. "Okay." Margaret spent 3 days in the hospital. In that time, something unexpected happened. The Oak Street Network didn't fall apart. It grew stronger. Doris stepped up to coordinate the meal deliveries. Pastor Jim handled the emergency calls. Elena organized the donation drives. The community Margaret had built proved it could stand without her at the center. When she came home, there were flowers on her porch, casseroles in her refrigerator, and a handmade card from Lily that read, "Get better soon. Love, Lily and Noah." Adam had transformed. The distant, haunted man who'd arrived 3 weeks ago was gone. In his place was someone with purpose, someone who'd found a reason to get up each morning. He'd taken over managing the Oak Street Network's logistics, creating spreadsheets and schedules with military precision. But more than that, he'd started researching programs that combined his experience as a veteran with social services. One evening, he sat at the kitchen table with Margaret, his laptop open. "Mom, look at this. It's called the Veterans Community Outreach Program. They train former military personnel to work with at-risk youth and families in crisis." Margaret peered at the screen. "You're thinking of joining?" "I already applied." Adam's voice was steady, confident in a way she hadn't heard in years. "The training starts next month. It's perfect. Everything I learned in the service, all that discipline and crisis management, but used to actually help people. Here, at home." Margaret reached across and squeezed his hand. "Your father would be so proud." "I think he'd be proud of you too." Adam smiled. "You started something real here, Mom. A network of people who actually care. That matters." "We started it together," Margaret corrected. "I couldn't have found those children without you." Over the following weeks, a rhythm developed. Margaret limited herself to 3 volunteer activities per week, took her medications religiously, and actually rested. Adam attended his training program while maintaining the Oak Street Network's operations. The Hartmans reported that Lily was blossoming. She'd started first grade at the local elementary school and came home each day with stories and artwork. Noah was crawling now, healthy and happy. One Saturday afternoon, Laura Hartman called Margaret with an update that made her cry. "Margaret, James, and I have been talking. We don't want to be temporary for these kids. We want to adopt them, both of them, permanently." "Oh, Laura, it won't be easy. There are legal hurdles with Crystal still being their biological mother, but our lawyer thinks we have a strong case, especially given the circumstances. We wanted you to know first, since you're the one who brought us all together." After the call, Margaret sat in her backyard, watching the sunset paint the sky. Adam found her there, sitting quietly with tears on her cheeks. "Good news or bad?" he asked. "The best news." Margaret smiled through her tears. "The Hartmans want to adopt Lily and Noah." Adam sat beside her. "That's incredible. You know what's strange? A month ago I was lonely. My days felt empty. I kept thinking my best years were behind me." Margaret looked at her son. "But helping those children, building this network, watching you find your path, I feel more alive now than I have in years. You always had it in you, Mom. You just needed a reason to let it out. Maybe we both did." They sat together in comfortable silence as the sky darkened and stars began to appear. Somewhere across town, 2 children were eating dinner with a family that loved them. Somewhere in the neighborhood, volunteers were delivering meals to struggling families. Somewhere in this small corner of the world, things were getting better. Not perfect, not fixed, but better. And sometimes, better was enough. Rebecca Mills called on a Tuesday morning with an unexpected request. "Mrs. Keller, Crystal Thompson would like to meet you." Margaret's coffee cup paused halfway to her lips. "She wants to meet me? She's heard about everything you've done for her children. She's asking if you'd be willing to visit her at the county facility." "I know it's a lot to ask." "I'll go," Margaret said immediately. Adam insisted on driving her. The county correctional facility was a gray concrete building that seemed to absorb all color from the surrounding area. Inside, the fluorescent lights were harsh. The air smelled of industrial cleaner, and every sound echoed. They waited in a small visiting room with plastic chairs and a scratched table. When Crystal Thompson was brought in, Margaret's heart broke. She was so young, 28 but looking both older and younger at the same time. Thin, with dark circles under her eyes, wearing an orange jumpsuit that hung on her small frame. But what struck Margaret most were her eyes, filled with such profound sadness that it was almost physical. Crystal sat down slowly, her hands shaking. She looked at Margaret and immediately started crying. "I'm so sorry," she sobbed. I'm so sorry. Margaret reached across the table instinctively, then remembered the rules and pulled back. Crystal, honey, I failed them. I failed my babies. Crystal's voice was raw. Lily almost died. Noah almost died. Because of me. Because I couldn't. She broke down completely. Margaret waited, letting Crystal cry. When the young woman finally looked up, Margaret spoke gently. Your children are alive. They're safe, and they know you love them. How can they know that? I left them. Lily's first words when Adam found her were about saving her brother. You taught her to protect him, to love him. That came from you. Crystal wiped her eyes with shaking hands. Rebecca told me about you. How you found them. How you found a family to take them both together. I don't understand why you'd help us. Because you needed help. Because your children needed help. That's all the reason I need. But I'm nobody. I'm just... Crystal's voice dropped to a whisper. I'm just a mess who keeps making everything worse. Margaret leaned forward. Do you know what I see when I look at you? I see a mother who loved her children so much she was terrified of losing them. I see someone who made mistakes, yes, but out of fear, not cruelty. Crystal shook her head. You don't understand. I lost Lily once before when she was a baby. They took her away because I was using, because I couldn't take care of her. It took me 4 years to get clean, to get her back. 4 years. Her voice cracked. When I found out I was pregnant with Noah, I was so scared they'd take him too. So I never registered his birth. Never took him to a doctor. I thought if they didn't know he existed, they couldn't take him. Oh, Crystal. And then I slipped up. One mistake, one moment of weakness, and I got arrested. I knew my babies were alone and I couldn't do anything. I couldn't protect them. Crystal looked at Margaret with desperate eyes. Do you know what that's like? To fail the only people who ever needed you? Margaret thought about her own failings. The years she'd lost touch with her grandchildren. The times she'd been too tired or too busy to help someone who needed it. Yes, she said quietly. I do. They talked for an hour. Crystal told her story. A childhood in foster care, bad relationships, addiction that started at 15. She'd tried so hard with Lily, but the system felt like it was always waiting for her to fail. The Hartmans, Crystal finally said. Rebecca says they're good people, that they want to adopt my babies. They are good people. They love Lily and Noah already. Crystal was quiet for a long moment. That should make me happy, but it just makes me feel like I'm being erased. You're not being erased, you're Lily and Noah's mother. That will never change. Margaret chose her words carefully. But maybe loving them means letting them have the stability you wish you could give them. Crystal nodded slowly, tears streaming down her face. Will you tell them something for me? When they're old enough to understand? Of course. Tell them I loved them. Tell them I tried. Tell them. Her voice broke. Tell them I'm sorry I wasn't enough. Margaret felt tears on her own cheeks. I'll tell them their mother loved them so much she wanted them to have everything she couldn't give them. I'll tell them that's the bravest kind of love there is. The guard announced visiting time was over. As Crystal stood to leave, she looked at Margaret one more time. Thank you for saving them, for being what I couldn't be. I didn't save them, Margaret said softly. You did by teaching Lily to ask for help, by loving them enough to survive. After Crystal was led away, Margaret sat in the visiting room for a long moment, Adam's hand on her shoulder. She's not a monster, Margaret whispered. She's just a broken person who needed help she never got. I know, Mom. We have to do better, as a society, as a community. We have to do better. Adam helped his mother stand. We're trying, one family at a time. As they walked out into the sunlight, Margaret made a silent promise, not just to Crystal's children, but to all the children falling through the cracks. She would keep fighting, keep building, keep caring, because someone had to. The adoption process moved slowly, tangled in legal procedures and court dates. Crystal, working with a public defender, agreed not to contest the adoption. It was the hardest decision of her life, but Rebecca helped her understand it was the most loving one. Meanwhile, the Oak Street network continued to grow. What had started as a handful of volunteers was now 35 people strong, with a donated office space in the church basement and a website Adam had built. Margaret attended a meeting one evening where Elena presented a new idea. We've helped a lot of families with immediate needs, food, childcare, emergency funds. But what if we went deeper? What if we created mentor programs, paired struggling parents with support systems before they reach crisis? The room buzzed with discussion. Pastor Jim added, "We could offer parenting classes, addiction support groups, financial literacy workshops." Doris raised her hand. "My daughter is a therapist. She might volunteer a few hours a month for counseling services." Margaret watched the ideas flow, her heart swelling. This was bigger than saving 2 children. This was about changing how a community cared for its most vulnerable. After the meeting, a young woman approached Margaret hesitantly. She was maybe 23, holding a toddler on her hip. "Mrs. Keller, I'm Vanessa. I heard about what you did for Crystal's kids. I'm in a tough spot and I didn't know who else to talk to." Margaret guided her to a quiet corner. "Tell me what's going on." Vanessa's story spilled out. Eviction notice, boyfriend who'd left, working 2 jobs but still not making ends meet, terrified of losing her daughter to the system like so many others in the neighborhood. "I'm not a bad mom," Vanessa said, her voice breaking. I'm drowning." Margaret took her hands. "You're not drowning alone anymore. We're going to help you." By the end of the evening, Vanessa had a list of resources, rental assistance programs, a better paying job lead from one of the volunteers, free childcare during her shifts, and Margaret's personal phone number. "Call me anytime," Margaret said. "Day or night, you're part of this community now." Vanessa left with tears of gratitude, and Margaret realized something profound. They weren't just helping families, they were rebuilding trust in a neighborhood that had learned not to hope. Adam completed his Veterans Community Outreach training and was immediately hired to work with at-risk youth. His first assignment was mentoring teenage boys who'd had trouble with the law, kids who reminded him of himself at that age, angry and directionless. He met with a 15-year-old named Marcus whose father was in prison and whose mother worked nights. "Why should I listen to you?" Marcus challenged during their first session. "Because I know what it's like to feel lost," Adam said simply. "I know what it's like to think nobody cares whether you make it or not." And what changed? Adam thought about finding Lily, about saving Noah, about watching his mother build something beautiful from tragedy. "I found a reason to matter, and I'm here to help you find yours." Over the weeks, Adam and Marcus met regularly. They worked on homework, talked about goals, played basketball. Slowly, the angry teenager began to soften, to hope, to try. One afternoon, Margaret visited Adam at work and saw him with a group of young men, all listening intently as he talked about making choices, about building futures, about believing in second chances. She barely recognized her son, this confident, purposeful man so different from the hollow-eyed soldier who'd arrived 2 months ago. "He's really good at this," Adam's supervisor told her. "Natural leader. The kids respond to him because he's real with them. He's finding himself," Margaret said softly. "Maybe. Or maybe he's been this person all along and just needed the right moment to show it." That evening, the Hartmans invited Margaret and Adam for dinner. The house was filled with the chaos of family life. Teenagers arguing about whose turn it was to do dishes, Noah banging a spoon on his high chair, Lily showing off a spelling test with a gold star. After dinner, Lily climbed into Margaret's lap, something she did every visit now. "Miss Margaret, can I tell you a secret?" "Of course, sweetheart," Lily whispered. "Laura and James said I can call them Mom and Dad when the adoption is final. Is that okay? Will my real mom be sad?" Margaret's throat tightened. "Your first mom loves you so much, and I think she'd be happy knowing you have a family that loves you too. You can love both, you know. Love doesn't run out." Lily considered this seriously, then nodded. "Okay, and you're like my grandma, right? I would be honored to be your grandma." Lily beamed and hugged Margaret tight. Over the child's shoulder, Margaret caught Laura's eye. The younger woman mouthed, "Thank you." Margaret mouthed back, "Thank you." As they drove home that night, Adam said, "You know what's amazing? 2 months ago, we were strangers to those kids. Now we're family." "Family isn't always about blood," Margaret replied. "Sometimes it's about who shows up when you need them most." "You taught me that, Mom." Margaret smiled in the darkness. "No, Adam, we learned it together." Winter arrived in California with surprising force. Cold rain that turned the streets into rivers and made the drafty houses of Oakwood even harder to keep warm. The Oak Street Network's phone rang constantly. Families needed help with heating bills, winter coats for children, emergency food supplies. Margaret coordinated from her kitchen table, but even with volunteers sharing the load, the needs seemed endless. One particularly stormy night, Margaret got a call at 11 o'clock. It was Vanessa, the young mother she'd helped months ago. "Mrs. Keller, I'm so sorry to call this late, but my heat got shut off, and my daughter has a fever, and I don't know what to." Her voice broke into sobs. "Give me your address. I'll be right there." Adam, who'd been working on case files in his room, appeared in the doorway. "Mom, no, it's pouring rain and you've been up since 5 this morning. That baby is sick and cold." "Then I'll go. You stay here and coordinate." He was already grabbing his coat. Margaret wanted to argue, but she saw the determination in her son's face and the wisdom in his words. She couldn't do everything herself. Adam drove through the storm to Vanessa's apartment, arriving with blankets, a space heater borrowed from a volunteer, and children's medicine. Vanessa cried when she opened the door, overwhelmed by gratitude and exhaustion. He got the heater running, showed Vanessa how to bundle her daughter properly, and stayed until the child's fever started to break. "How do you do this?" Vanessa asked. "How do you and your mom keep giving when there's always someone else who needs help?" Adam thought about the question as he drove home through the rain. How did they keep going? The answer came to him slowly. Because every person they helped was real. Every child they saved mattered. And knowing they'd made even one life better made the exhaustion worthwhile. But the exhaustion was real. By January, Margaret started having heart palpitations. Nothing severe enough for the hospital, but enough that Dr. Patel warned her again about stress levels. "You're doing incredible work," he said during her checkup, "but you're 67 years old with chronic conditions. Your body can't sustain this pace indefinitely." Margaret knew he was right, but how could she slow down when the calls kept coming? The answer arrived unexpectedly during a network meeting. Elena stood up with an announcement. "I've been working with a nonprofit consultant. We have an opportunity to apply for a grant that would let us hire a part-time coordinator and rent a proper office space. We could expand our services and take the pressure off volunteers." The room erupted in excited discussion. Margaret felt a weight lift. If they could formalize the organization, create sustainable systems, maybe she could step back without everything falling apart. "There's one condition," Elena continued. "We need to officially incorporate as a nonprofit. That means a board of directors, bylaws, proper structure." Pastor Jim spoke up. "I nominate Margaret Keller as founding director." "I second that," Doris said immediately. Margaret stood up, her voice trembling slightly. "I'm honored, truly. But I think we need someone younger, someone with more energy." "You're the heart of this organization," Elena interrupted gently. "But you don't have to be everything. Let us help you the way you've helped so many others." Margaret looked around the room at the faces of people who'd become more than volunteers. They'd become family. People who cared as much as she did, who shared the burden of building something meaningful. "Okay," she said finally, "but only if we do this together, as a true community." The room applauded. Over the next month, they filed paperwork, wrote bylaws, and applied for the grant. Adam helped with all the administrative work, using his organizational skills to create systems that would last. The grant came through in March, $50,000 to hire staff and establish a proper community center. The Oak Street Network officially became the Oak Street Community Alliance. At the celebration, Margaret gave a short speech to the packed church hall. "2 years ago, I was lonely. I felt like my life's purpose had passed me by. Then a little girl in crisis crossed my path, and everything changed." She paused, looking at all the faces. "But I didn't do this alone. Every person here contributed. Every act of kindness mattered. We proved that ordinary people can do extraordinary things when they care enough to try." The applause was thunderous. Lily and Noah, dressed up for the occasion, ran to Margaret and hugged her legs. She picked up Lily, who was getting almost too big to carry, and held her tight. "This is for you," she whispered to the child. "For all the children who deserve better." Lily whispered back, "You're the best grandma ever." Margaret's eyes filled with tears. The good kind, the kind that came from joy instead of pain. Spring brought new life to Oakwood. Flowers bloomed in gardens that volunteers had helped plant. Fresh paint brightened once dilapidated houses. The community center opened its doors with after-school programs, parenting classes, and a food pantry that operated 3 days a week. Margaret, now officially retired from her director role but still volunteering part-time, finally had time to breathe. Her health had stabilized. She took morning walks, attended her book club, and spent Sundays with Lily and Noah. The adoption was nearly finalized. Crystal had completed her sentence and was now in a transitional housing program, working toward rebuilding her life. She'd signed the papers allowing the Hartmans to adopt, but Rebecca had arranged for supervised visits twice a month. On a warm April afternoon, Margaret accompanied Crystal to one of these visits at the community center. Crystal was nervous, her hands shaking as she waited in the bright playroom. When Lily and Noah arrived with Laura, there was an awkward moment of silence. Lily hung back holding Laura's hand, while Noah, now a sturdy 1-year-old, toddled around curiously. Crystal knelt down slowly. "Hi, Lily. Hi, Noah." Lily didn't move at first, then softly, "Hi. I brought you something." Crystal pulled out a small box, opening it to reveal 2 silver bracelets with their names engraved. "I made these in a jewelry class, so you'll always remember. So you'll know I think about you every day." Lily stepped forward tentatively, looking at the bracelet. "It's pretty, just like you," Crystal whispered, tears streaming down her face. Margaret watched Laura's face, the foster mother who'd become something more. There was no jealousy there, only compassion. She nodded encouragingly at Lily. Lily took the bracelet and slipped it on her wrist. "Thank you. Can I hug you?" Crystal asked carefully. Lily thought about it, then nodded. Crystal embraced her daughter gently as if she might break, and Lily, after a moment, hugged her back. "I'm sorry," Crystal whispered, "for everything." "It's okay," Lily said simply. "Laura and James take good care of us, and Miss Margaret visits all the time, and my teacher says I'm really good at reading." Crystal pulled back, smiling through her tears. "I'm so proud of you." Noah, curious about the commotion, toddled over and grabbed Crystal's leg. She laughed and picked him up, holding him close, memorizing the weight of him, the smell of his hair, the sound of his giggle. Laura and Margaret stepped outside to give them privacy. "This is hard," Laura admitted, watching her with them. "Part of me wants to protect them from any more pain. But they need this," Margaret said gently. "They need to know their story, all of it, the hard parts and the healing parts. You're right, I love them so much already. I want to shield them from everything. That's what makes you a good mother." Margaret squeezed Laura's hand. "But loving them means letting them have all their truths, even the complicated ones." When the visit ended, Crystal held both children one more time. "I love you both. So much. You be good for Laura and James, okay?" "We will," Lily promised. As they drove away, Margaret walked Crystal back to her bus stop. "Thank you for arranging this," Crystal said. "I know I don't deserve—" "Stop. Everyone deserves a chance at redemption." Margaret looked at the young woman, still broken in some ways, but trying. "How's the job training going?" "Good. I'm learning medical billing. It's boring but stable." Crystal smiled weakly. "Never thought I'd want boring, but here we are." "Boring is underrated." At the bus stop, Crystal turned to Margaret. "Why did you help me, after everything?" "Because you're a human being who deserves compassion. Because your children need to know their mother tried to get better. Because giving up on people is easy. Believing in them is harder, but more important." Crystal wiped her eyes. "I'll never be able to repay you. Then pay it forward. When you're strong enough, help someone else who's struggling. That's how we change things. One person helping another, creating a chain of kindness." The bus arrived. Crystal hugged Margaret quickly, then climbed aboard. Margaret watched it drive away, thinking about second chances and broken people who were trying to piece themselves back together. Adam picked her up 20 minutes later. "How'd it go?" "Better than I hoped. Crystal's really trying." "Think she'll make it?" "I think she has a chance, and sometimes a chance is all someone needs." They drove past the community center, past houses where families they'd helped were building better lives, past the park where children played safely under watchful eyes. "We did something good here, didn't we, Mom?" Margaret looked at her son. No longer haunted, no longer lost, but purposeful and whole. "Yes, Adam. We did something very good." Summer arrived with clear blue skies and the sound of children's laughter filling the streets. The Oak Street Community Alliance was thriving. They'd helped over 70 families in the past year, and the waiting list for services had finally shrunk to manageable levels. Adam had been promoted to senior coordinator for his veteran outreach program. He'd helped 12 young men find jobs, 3 get into college, and countless others simply find hope. Marcus, the angry 15-year-old from his first assignment, was now 17 and headed to community college with a scholarship. "You changed my life, man," Marcus told Adam at his graduation party. "No," Adam replied. "You changed your own life. I just believed you could." Margaret's health had never been better. Regular checkups, managed stress, daily walks, and the joy of meaningful work had added years to her life. She looked younger somehow, her eyes brighter, her smile coming easier. One evening in late June, the Hartmans invited Margaret and Adam to dinner. A special dinner, they said. When they arrived, the house was decorated with balloons and a banner that read, "Forever Family." Laura met them at the door, beaming. "It's official. The adoption was finalized this morning. Lily and Noah are legally ours." Margaret's hands flew to her mouth. "Oh, Laura." Inside, Lily wore a new dress and Noah had a little bow tie. They'd made a cake, lopsided and imperfectly frosted, clearly the work of children's hands. "We wanted to celebrate with you," James said, his arm around Laura. "None of this would have happened without you two." Lily ran to Margaret, pulling her down to whisper in her ear, "I have something for you. I've been working on it for weeks." She led Margaret to the living room and handed her a large piece of construction paper carefully folded. Margaret opened it slowly. It was a drawing, a house in bright colors with stick figures representing the whole family. But in the center, larger than the others, was a figure with gray hair and a giant red heart on her chest. Underneath, in Lily's careful handwriting, "You're the grandma I wished I had. Thank you for saving us. Love, Lily." Margaret couldn't speak. Tears poured down her face as she clutched the drawing to her chest. Lily hugged her tight. "Don't cry, Grandma Margaret," Lily said. "These are happy tears, right?" Margaret nodded, unable to form words, and held the little girl who'd started everything. This precious child who'd been abandoned but refused to give up, who'd whispered for help and changed so many lives in the process. Adam came over, reading the drawing over Margaret's shoulder. His own eyes were wet. "Mom, you did it. You actually did it." Margaret finally found her voice. "We did it. All of us together." The celebration lasted hours. They ate cake, told stories, laughed until their sides hurt. The Hartman teenagers, who'd welcomed their new siblings with surprising grace, presented Lily and Noah with official sibling certificates they'd made themselves. As the evening wound down, Laura pulled Margaret aside onto the porch. "I need you to know something," Laura said quietly. "When James and I first talked about fostering, I was scared. Scared we were too old to start over with young children. Scared we couldn't handle the trauma they'd been through. Scared we'd fail them. But you didn't fail them. Because you showed us what real love looks like. Not perfect love, messy, exhausting, show up even when it's hard love." Laura's voice cracked. "You could have just called 911 and walked away that morning. But you didn't. You fought for 2 children who weren't even yours. You built a whole community around the idea that everyone matters. You gave us permission to believe we could do this." Margaret hugged her. "You gave those children something I never could. A permanent home, a real family. That's everything. You're part of that family too. Always." Inside, Lily called out, "Grandma Margaret, come see Noah dance." Margaret laughed through her tears and went back inside to watch her grandson, because that's what he was now, regardless of biology, spin in wobbly circles while everyone clapped. That night, driving home under a sky full of stars, Margaret and Adam were quiet. The kind of quiet that comes after something profound, when words feel inadequate. Finally, Adam spoke. "Do you ever think about that morning? Finding Lily? Every day. What if we hadn't gone running that route? What if I'd chosen a different street?" Margaret was quiet for a moment. "I used to believe in coincidence. Now I think we were meant to find each other. Lily needed us, but we needed her too. To save us, to remind us why we matter, to show us that one person really can change everything." Margaret looked at her son. "You came home lost, Adam. Now look at you. I could say the same about you, Mom. You were so lonely. Not anymore." Margaret smiled. Not anymore. 2 years later, Margaret stood in the backyard of the Hartman house on a perfect October afternoon, watching the organized chaos of a birthday party. Lily was turning 8, and it seemed like half the neighborhood had shown up. Children ran through the grass, their laughter carrying on the breeze. Parents chatted over the fence, swapping stories and contact information. The Oak Street Community Alliance had a table set up with information about upcoming programs. Noah, now a sturdy 3-year-old, zoomed past on his tricycle, nearly colliding with Adam, who scooped him up and spun him around until the little boy shrieked with delight. "Uncle Adam, again!" Margaret smiled, watching her son, so different from the hollow-eyed soldier who'd arrived in her kitchen 3 years ago. He was engaged now, to a fellow social worker named Claire. They'd bought a house 2 streets over and talked about starting their own family soon. "Mrs. Keller?" A young woman approached hesitantly. Margaret recognized her, Vanessa, the single mother from years ago. But she looked different now, confident, healthy. Her daughter, now 6, played nearby. "Vanessa, how wonderful to see you. I wanted to thank you. I got my nursing degree last month. I start at Mercy General next week." Vanessa's eyes shone with pride. "When I was drowning 3 years ago, you threw me a lifeline. Now I want to do the same for others. I'm so proud of you. Actually, I'm volunteering with the Alliance now, helping other single moms navigate the system, paying it forward, like you said." After Vanessa walked away, Laura appeared at Margaret's side. "Look what you started." "We started," Margaret corrected. "I keep telling people, I didn't do this alone, but you believed it was possible. That's what made the difference." Margaret watched Lily across the yard, surrounded by friends, her face bright with joy. The scared, silent child from that terrible morning was gone. In her place was a confident girl who loved school, played soccer, and talked about becoming a veterinarian. Crystal arrived then, right on schedule for her monthly visit. She'd been clean for 2 years, had her own apartment, and worked full-time doing medical billing. The relationship with her children was still careful, still healing, but genuine. Lily saw her and waved. "Mom, Crystal, come see my new bike." The name had been Lily's idea, a way to honor both mothers, both loves. Crystal's eyes filled with tears every time she heard it. Margaret watched Crystal embrace her daughter, watched Laura smile from across the yard, watched 2 women who'd once competed for the same children now united in wanting what was best for them. This was what healing looked like. Messy, imperfect, but real. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold, the party wound down. Margaret helped clean up, collecting paper plates and deflating balloons. Lily found her in the kitchen. "Grandma Margaret, can I show you something?" She led Margaret to her bedroom and pulled out a journal from her nightstand. "My teacher said we should write about people who changed our lives. I wrote about you." Margaret sat on the bed and read Lily's careful handwriting. 3 years ago, my life was dark and scary. I didn't know if anyone would help us. Then Grandma Margaret found us. She didn't just save us that day. She saved us every day after. She showed me that even when bad things happen, there are still good people who care. She taught me that family isn't just who you're born to, it's who shows up when you need them. Because of her, I have 2 moms, a real home, and a little brother who's safe. Because of her, I know I can be strong. When I grow up, I want to help people just like she does. Margaret couldn't see the words anymore through her tears. She pulled Lily close. "You already help people, sweetheart. Every time you smile, every time you show kindness, every time you refuse to give up, you make the world better. Like you. Better than me. Because you've known darkness and chose light anyway. That's real courage." That evening, as Margaret and Adam drove home, she felt a profound sense of peace. Not because everything was perfect. It wasn't. There were still families struggling, still children at risk, still so much work to do. But they'd proven something important. That ordinary people could make extraordinary differences. That a 67-year-old woman and her struggling veteran son could save 2 children and, in the process, save themselves. That one act of compassion could ripple outward, touching dozens of lives. "What are you thinking about?" Adam asked. Margaret looked at the familiar streets of Oakwood, no longer the neglected neighborhood of her loneliness, but a community bound together by care and determination. "I'm thinking about legacy. About what we leave behind. She smiled at her son. We changed things here, Adam. Maybe not everything, but enough. Enough to matter. More than enough, Mom. You gave people hope. You gave me purpose. You gave Lily and Noah a future. That's everything. Margaret thought about the drawing Lily had made years ago, still framed on her wall. You're the grandma I wished I had. But the truth was simpler and more beautiful. Lily was the granddaughter Margaret had wished for. Noah was the grandson she'd never expected. This whole messy, wonderful community was the family she'd built from broken pieces. She wasn't lonely anymore. Her days weren't empty. Her life had meaning. And it had all started with one child's whispered plea and the decision to answer it. You know what? Margaret said softly. I think this is what I was always meant to do. Not in some grand, planned way, but in the way life actually works. Showing up, caring deeply, and refusing to look away when someone needs help. That's the best legacy of all, Mom. As they pulled into the driveway, Margaret looked up at the stars beginning to appear in the darkening sky. Somewhere in that vast universe, she liked to think, someone was watching. Her late husband, maybe, or God, or just the mysterious force that connected all human hearts. And she hoped they were proud, because Margaret Keller, ordinary woman, had done something extraordinary. She had loved when it mattered most.